The stars look different out here. Jae-hwan Park understood this better than most. As the lead xenobiologist aboard the research vessel Horizon, he had spent years studying the vast emptiness between star systems. His dark eyes scanned the holographic displays, tracking minute variations in cosmic radiation and electromagnetic signatures that most people would never notice. The ship's bridge was quiet, almost too quiet. Only the soft hum of advanced computer systems and the occasional beep of monitoring equipment broke the silence. Jae-hwan adjusted his lightweight communication headset, his fingers moving across the holographic controls with practiced ease. "Dr. Park," called out Lieutenant Kim from the sensor station, "we're picking up an unusual signal about 2.3 light-years from our current position." Jae-hwan moved closer, his curiosity immediately sparked. Unusual signals were rarely just unusual in deep space exploration. They were either signs of natural phenomena or something far more interesting. The initial data stream appeared fragmented. Bits and pieces of information flickered across the main screen, forming a pattern that didn't make immediate sense. Jae-hwan's training kicked in. He began running complex algorithms, trying to decode the transmission. Suddenly, the fragmented signal resolved itself. A message. Clear. Direct. Chilling. "Attention unknown species." The translation program began. "You have entered territory claimed by the Krell Collective. Your presence is unauthorized. Surrender your vessel and colonization rights, or face total elimination." The bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at Jae-hwan. He knew this was no routine communication. The message carried a weight of absolute certainty, a cold threat that left no room for negotiation. The Krell were not asking. They were informing. Lieutenant Kim broke the silence. "What do we do, Doctor?" Jae-hwan's mind raced. The Horizon was a research vessel, not a military ship. They were equipped with scientific instruments, not weapons. Their primary mission was exploration and understanding, not confrontation. "Maintain our current course," Jae-hwan responded, his voice steady. "But prepare emergency communication protocols to Earth Command." The next few moments would be critical. First contact scenarios were always unpredictable, but this felt different. This felt like a declaration of war. As if reading his thoughts, the Krell transmission continued. "Your technological level is insufficient. Your biological characteristics are unremarkable. Resistance is illogical. Surrender is the only rational choice." Jae-hwan couldn't help but smile. Humans had been told they were insufficient before. Throughout history, humans had proven such assessments wrong time and time again. "Track the signal source," he instructed Lieutenant Kim, "and prepare a detailed report for Earth Command. Something tells me this is just the beginning." The ship's computers began compiling data. Outside the reinforced windows, space looked the same as always. Vast, dark, and full of unknown possibilities. But everything had changed in those few moments of communication. First contact had been made, and humanity was about to be tested in ways no one could have predicted. Jae-hwan Park looked out into the darkness, his reflection ghostly against the starry backdrop. Whatever was coming, humans would face it together. The Orion sector burned with the light of 1,000 dying stars. Yuna Kim watched the holographic display, her hand steadied despite the chaos around her. This was more than a battle. This was a moment that would define human history. "Incoming Krell fleet," announced Lieutenant Park from the communication station. 15 capital ships, hundreds of support vessels. Traditional military wisdom would say humans were doomed. The Krell fleet was massive. Their technology was centuries ahead. Their weapons could destroy entire planets with a single shot. But humans were not traditional. "Activate the quantum disruption protocols," Yuna commanded. What happened next was unlike any space battle in history. The Krell ships began to experience strange problems. Their communication networks started to fail. Navigation systems gave conflicting information. Weapon targeting became unreliable. It wasn't that the human ships were stronger. They were smarter. Jiwoo's special operations team had spent months preparing for this moment. They had planted digital seeds in Krell communication systems, seeds that now grew into full-blown chaos. A Krell battleship suddenly turned against another. Its computer systems were sending it impossible commands. Another ship's weapon systems fired randomly, destroying its own support vessels. The human fleet was small, maybe 50 ships in total, but each ship was more than a weapon. Each ship was a thinking, adapting organism. Quantum communication network at full strength, reported Hoom Kim. His fingers danced across complex control panels. We're reading their systems in real time. Jae-won, who had been coordinating scientific research, watched the battle with a mix of horror and hope. Humans were not just fighting. They were learning. Every Krell attack was studied, analyzed, understood. The human ships had adaptive shield systems that learned from each incoming weapon blast. They didn't just block. They remembered. They thought we were just another species to conquer, Yuna said quietly. They were wrong. The battle wasn't about destroying the Krell fleet. It was about showing the Krell something they had never seen before. Adaptability, creativity, the ability to turn weakness into strength. A Krell commander would later describe the battle as fighting smoke. Human ships moved in ways that made no sense. They appeared and disappeared. They attacked from impossible angles. Hours passed. The Orion sector became a graveyard of Krell technology. When the battle ended, only a handful of human ships remained, but they had destroyed over 2/3 of the Krell fleet. More important than the physical victory was what this battle represented, a message to the Krell and to the entire galaxy. Humans were not just survivors. They were something else entirely. Prepare communication broadcast, Yuma instructed. Let them know we're not finished. The message was simple, clear, direct. We are humanity, and we are not going anywhere. In the darkness of space, surrounded by the remains of destroyed Krell ships, humans had written a new chapter of their story. The research base was quiet, too quiet. Jae-won looked at the faces around him. Scientists, engineers, survivors. Each person carried the weight of humanity's hope. They knew what was coming. They knew the choice that had to be made. We have one shot, he said softly. The plan was simple but impossible. They had developed a technology that could completely disrupt the Krell's primary communication network. But using it would come at an enormous cost. Min-Soo Lee, the engineer who had survived the Epsilon Prime attack, had been working on this for months. Her hands were covered in small burns from countless failed experiments. Her eyes showed both exhaustion and determination. The quantum disruption device will work, she explained. But it requires a direct connection to the main Krell communication hub. Someone has to get inside their most protected facility. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Getting inside the Krell's most secure location was a one-way mission. Whoever went would not come back alive. Yoon-ji Choi, the medical specialist, began preparing emergency medical kits, not for survival, but to ensure the mission's critical data could be transmitted if the worst happened. Yuna Kim studied the holographic map. The Krell communication hub was located on a heavily defended planet. Massive energy shields, thousands of defensive weapons, automated killing systems that could detect and destroy any approaching vessel in seconds. It's suicide, Lieutenant Park muttered. Jae-won knew the risks, but he also knew something else. Humans had always been willing to sacrifice everything for a chance to survive, for a chance to protect others. I'll go, he said quietly. No dramatic speech, no long explanation, just a simple statement of fact. The team knew him. They knew what he was capable of. More important, they knew his chances of survival were almost zero. Preparations began quickly. Special stealth technology, quantum communication devices, compact but powerful data transmission equipment. Each piece of technology was carefully selected, knowing it might be humanity's last hope. If this works, Min Su explained, we can disrupt the entire Krell communication network, their ships, their colonies, their entire system of control. The cost was clear. Jae-hwan would have to physically enter the most dangerous place in the known galaxy, plant a device that would send a signal unlike anything the Krell had ever seen, and most likely die in the process. Yuna approached him during the final preparation. "Are you sure?" she asked. Jae-hwan smiled. "Someone has to do it," he responded. The night before the mission, the research base was filled with a strange mix of hope and sadness. Everyone knew what was at stake. Everyone understood the sacrifice one person would make for the entire human species. "We are not just fighting for ourselves," Jae-hwan told the team during the final briefing. "We are fighting for every human who has ever looked at the stars and dreamed of something more." As he prepared to board the stealth ship, something changed in the atmosphere. It was not just a mission. It was a testament to human spirit, to the willingness to give everything for a chance at survival. The Krell thought they understood humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Krell Command Center was a nightmare of metal and light. Jae-hwan moved like a ghost through impossible security systems. Every step was calculated, every breath controlled. Behind him, the quantum disruption device felt heavy, not in weight, but in possibility. Krell technology was perfect, or so they believed. Humans were about to prove them wrong. The central communication hub looked like a massive metal brain. Thousands of data streams moved through complex networks. Each stream represented a piece of the Krell's galactic control system. Jae-hwan's special implants, developed in the hidden research bases, allowed him to see things no normal human could. Data streams looked like rivers of light. Communication pathways twisted and turned like complex neural networks. "Target acquired," he whispered into his quantum communication device. Back at the Human Command Center, Yuna Kim watched every movement. Her team had spent months preparing for this exact moment. One mission, one chance to change everything. The Krell had no idea what was coming. Automated defense systems began to activate. Mechanical arms with weapon attachments emerged from hidden panels. Laser targeting systems locked onto Jae-hwan's position. But these were normal defenses. Human technology was anything but normal. The quantum disruption device started its work. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was an information virus, a piece of technology that would rewrite the very way the Krell communicated. First, small changes. Communication signals began to twist. Data streams started to mix in unexpected ways. The Krell system, which had never faced true adaptive technology, began to experience something like confusion. Imagine a perfect machine suddenly discovering it could think differently. Krell leadership watched in horror as their communication networks began to break down. Ships received impossible orders. Defense systems targeted their own vessels. The entire galactic communication infrastructure started to collapse. "What is happening?" demanded the Krell Supreme Commander. No one could answer. Jae-hwan moved deeper into the communication hub. Each step was a battle. Automated defense systems tried to stop him. But the human technology was always one step ahead. The quantum device was more than a weapon. It was a message. A message that said, humans are not just another species to be conquered. Hours passed like minutes. The Krell communication system, which had controlled multiple star systems for thousands of years, began to fall apart. "Mission parameters changing," Jae-hwan reported. "Preparing final transmission." The final transmission was simple. Not a threat, not a declaration of war, just a statement of fact. "We are humanity. We adapt. We survive." In the Krell Command Center, something unprecedented happened. Their perfect, logic-driven system experienced what humans might call emotion. Confusion, fear, uncertainty. The Krell had never faced an enemy like this before. An enemy that didn't just fight. An enemy that thought. An enemy that could turn weakness into strength. As the communication hub began to collapse, Jae-hwan knew his mission was almost complete. He had done what no one thought possible. He had shown the galaxy what humans truly were. The Earth Defense Council chamber was unlike any meeting room. Located deep beneath the planetary surface, it was a fortress of technology and human determination. Yoona Kim stood at the center, her military uniform crisp and her posture straight. Around her, holographic displays flickered with incoming reports from deep space colonies. "We have confirmation," Director Huang announced, his voice grave. "The Krell attack has begun." The first strikes were brutal and swift. 3 outer colonies went dark within hours. Communication signals died. Entire settlements simply vanished as if erased from existence. The Krell were not interested in negotiation. They were systematically eliminating human presence in contested space. Yoona's fingers danced across the holographic controls. Each lost colony was more than just a number. These were people, families, communities that had worked for years to establish themselves among the stars. "We need a response," she said firmly. "Not just a military strategy, but something they won't expect." Director Huang raised an eyebrow. In the military world, unexpected usually meant risky. But right now, traditional approaches were failing. "The Krell have technology centuries ahead of our current capabilities," one of the analysts noted. Her voice trembled slightly. "Our current weapons are like throwing rocks at a tank." Yoona knew the odds. The Krell had been conquering civilizations for thousands of years. Their technological superiority was not just an advantage, it was a complete mismatch. Every previous species they had encountered had been quickly defeated or absorbed. But humans were different. "We're not going to fight their war," Yoona declared. "We're going to change the game entirely." Within hours, research teams across Earth were mobilized. Engineering labs that typically worked on slow, careful scientific projects were now operating at maximum speed. Universities emptied as the best minds were recruited. Every computer, every research station, every available resource was focused on one goal: finding a way to survive. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A small team of programmers and quantum physicists discovered a way to create adaptive communication algorithms. These weren't just communication tools. They were dynamic systems that could learn and change faster than the Krell could track. "It's like teaching a computer to think like a human," explained Dr. Park, one of the lead researchers. "Unpredictable, creative, willing to break its own rules." Prototype defense systems began to take shape. They weren't traditional weapons. Instead, they were intelligent systems that could analyze, adapt, and respond to threats in milliseconds. Where the Krell expected solid, predictable defenses, humans were creating something fluid and dynamic. In orbital research stations, engineers worked on revolutionary shield technologies. Instead of blocking attacks, these shields would absorb and redirect energy. They would learn from each attack, becoming stronger and more resilient. Yoona watched the initial test results. The first simulated Krell attack against these new systems showed promising results. The defense grid didn't just survive, it evolved. "We're not going to win by being stronger," she told Director Huang. "We're going to win by being different." The Krell had made a critical mistake. They had looked at humans and saw only a young species. They saw potential resources, not potential rivals. They didn't understand that human innovation came from a unique combination of creativity, desperation, and an unbreakable spirit. The first real test was coming, and humanity would show the galaxy exactly what they were made of. The conference room was quiet. Representatives from dozens of human colonies sat around a large circular table. Outside the windows, space stretched endlessly, no longer a place of fear, but a landscape of possibility. Yoona Kim looked different. The war had changed her. Her uniform was clean, but her eyes told a story of survival. "We did not just win a war," she began. "We changed how the universe sees us." Jae-hwan's sacrifice was remembered, not as a tragic loss, but as a turning point. His mission had done more than disrupt the Krell. It had shown that humans were something entirely unique. The Krell communication network had completely collapsed. Their vast galactic control system, built over thousands of years, had fallen apart in hours, not through brute force, but through intelligent adaptation. Min Su Li stood up. The engineer who had survived the Epsilon Prime attack now looked like a hero. "We learned something important," she said. "Our strength is not in our weapons. It's in how we think." Representatives from different colonies shared their stories. Stories of survival. Stories of creativity. Stories that showed how humans faced impossible challenges. A holographic display showed the extent of human recovery. Colonies that had been destroyed were being rebuilt, but not the same way as before. Each colony was now a testament to human resilience. Yunji Choi, the medical specialist, presented research on how humans had adapted to extreme conditions. Their bodies, their minds, everything had changed during the war. "We are not the same species we were before," she explained. "We have evolved." The galactic community, other species who had watched the conflict, began to see humans differently. No longer were humans seen as a young, weak species. They were now viewed as something unpredictable, something dangerous, something wonderful. The Krell, once thought to be unbeatable, had been completely transformed. Their communication systems were in ruins. Their military might had collapsed. They were forced to retreat to their home systems. But this was not a story of total destruction. "We do not seek to eliminate," Yuna emphasized. "We seek to understand, to coexist." This was the true human difference. The ability to fight when necessary, but also the ability to show mercy, to learn, to grow. Jadwan's final transmission became a legendary moment. Not a war cry, not a threat, just a simple statement. "We are humanity. We adapt. We survive." Those words were now carved into memorial walls on multiple human colonies, a reminder of what they had been through, a promise of what they could become. The conference room fell silent for a moment. Each person understood the weight of their journey. They had started as a species fighting for survival. They had become something more. Outside the window, a new human colony ship prepared for launch. Its design was unlike anything seen before. Adaptive, flexible, ready for anything the universe might bring. "What comes next?" someone asked. Yuna Kim smiled, a smile that held hope, determination, and the promise of endless possibilities. "We explore," she said simply. "We learn. We grow." Humanity had faced its greatest challenge, and in doing so, had discovered its true potential. Epsilon Prime was burning. Jaehwan watched through the cracked view screen of the emergency shelter. What was once a thriving human colony now looked like a nightmare landscape. Twisted metal structures jutted from the ground like broken bones. Smoke rose in thick, dark columns that blocked out the planet's twin suns. The Krell attack had been merciless. "We've lost contact with the eastern settlement," Min Su Li reported. The engineer's voice was calm, but her hands were shaking as she checked the remaining communication equipment. Her fingers moved quickly, trying to salvage what little technology remained. Beside her, Yunji Choi worked on medical supplies. The medical specialist had already treated 3 severe injuries, and they were running out of basic medical resources. Her emergency kit was almost empty, each bandage and medication carefully rationed. Jaehwan knew their situation was desperate. The emergency shelter was nothing more than a reinforced underground bunker designed as a last resort survival point. Its walls were made of advanced composite materials, but even those were showing signs of stress from the repeated Krell bombardments. "We have enough food and water for 3 more days," Min Su said, breaking the silence. "After that, we'll need to make a decision." The decision was clear, though no one wanted to say it out loud. They could stay and slowly die in the shelter, or they could try to escape and likely die in the open. Yunji looked up from her medical supplies. "The radiation levels are increasing," she reported. "The Krell aren't just destroying our colony. They're making sure nothing can survive here. Jae-hwan studied the colony's map on a damaged tablet. The Krell had a specific strategy. They weren't just conquering. They were completely erasing any trace of human existence. Each bombardment was calculated, each strike designed to eliminate not just life, but the very possibility of life. A loud bang interrupted their thoughts. Something was hitting the shelter's outer door. Min-soo grabbed a makeshift weapon, a piece of metal piping she had modified during their time in the shelter. Yun-ji moved closer to the medical supplies, ready to defend them if needed. Jae-hwan approached the door's monitoring screen. The image showed a Krell scout, a tall, metallic creature with multiple limbs and a body that seemed more machine than living organism. Its multiple eyes scanned the area, searching for any sign of life. "Don't move," Jae-hwan whispered to his companions. They held their breath. One sound, one small movement could give away their position. The Krell scout continued its search, its mechanical limbs moving with precise, calculated movements. Minutes passed. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, the scout moved away. "That was close," Min-soo whispered. Jae-hwan knew they had survived this moment. But survival was temporary. The Krell would return. They always returned. "We need a plan," he said quietly. "We can't just wait to die." Yun-ji looked at him, a spark of hope in her eyes. "Humans never just wait to die," she responded. Outside, Epsilon Prime continued to burn. But inside the shelter, something else was growing. Not just a plan for survival, but a determination that would change everything. The Krell thought they had won. They were wrong. The asteroid research base looked like nothing special from the outside. A simple metal structure nestled deep within a rocky belt, it was deliberately designed to be unremarkable. But inside, something extraordinary was happening. Jae-hwan and Yuna stood side by side, watching a holographic display that showed something that would change everything. Around them, scientists worked with intense focus, their fingers moving across complex interfaces. "Quantum entanglement communication," Yuna explained, her voice steady. "But not like anything we've done before." The breakthrough was simple in concept, but revolutionary in practice. Traditional communication systems had limits. They were slow. They could be tracked. They could be blocked. This new system was different. Dr. Kim, the lead quantum physicist, approached with a small device no bigger than a human hand. "This is our first working prototype," she said. The device looked almost plain, a smooth metal rectangle with a few small lights. Jae-hwan picked it up. "Explain it like I'm a complete beginner," he requested. Dr. Kim smiled. "Imagine two particles that are connected no matter how far apart they are. When something happens to one, the other instantly knows. No delay. No signal that can be tracked or blocked." The implications were huge. The Krell relied on massive communication networks that could be disrupted. This new system would be invisible, untraceable, instant. "We're not just creating a communication device," Yuna said. "We're creating a way to share information that the Krell can't understand or stop." The research base was more than just a scientific facility. It was humanity's last hope. Survivors from multiple destroyed colonies had been brought here. Each person carried knowledge. Each person was a piece of a larger puzzle. Min-soo Lee, the engineer from Epsilon Prime, worked on adaptive shield technology nearby. Her experiences during the Krell attack had given her insights that no traditional researcher would have. She understood what it meant to survive. "The shields can't just block," she explained to a group of younger scientists. "They need to learn, to adapt, just like we do." Her prototype was revolutionary. Instead of a solid defense, it was more like a living system. Each attack would be studied, understood, and then countered more effectively next time. Yun-ji Choi, the medical specialist, worked on another critical project. She was developing ways to rapidly treat radiation and chemical exposure, injuries that the Krell weapons caused. Her work wasn't just medical. It was about human survival. Jae-hwan watched all of this with a sense of hope he hadn't felt since the first Krell attacks. Humans were doing what they always did best: adapting, changing, finding solutions where others saw only problems. "We're not just fighting," he said quietly to Yuna. "We're evolving." The quantum communication device in his hand seemed to pulse with potential. It was more than technology. It was a symbol of human determination. Outside the research base, asteroids drifted silently. The Krell didn't know what was happening here. They thought they had humanity cornered, defeated. They were wrong. The next phase of human resistance was about to begin, and it would be nothing like anyone expected. The small spacecraft moved like a ghost through the asteroid field. Inside, HFY Park checked his equipment one last time. This was not a typical military mission. This was something entirely different. "Systems ready," whispered Hoon Kim from the navigation station. "We're invisible to Krell scanners." The team was small but carefully chosen. Each member brought something special, something the Krell would never expect. They were not here to fight a traditional war. They were here to make the Krell question everything they knew about warfare. Jae-woo reviewed the mission parameters. Their target was a Krell communication relay station, but they weren't going to destroy it. They were going to mess with it in ways the Krell couldn't understand. "Remember," Jae-woo told his team, "we're not soldiers. We're ghosts." Their first target was simple but critical. The Krell relied on massive communication networks. These networks were their strength, but they were also their weakness. The spacecraft approached the relay station. It looked like a massive metal spider floating in space, with multiple arms reaching out in different directions. Each arm was a communication antenna, sending and receiving signals across vast distances. Hoon's fingers moved across the control panel. "Quantum disruption sequence ready," he reported. What happened next was not an explosion. It was something far more interesting. The team began to inject complex information packets into the Krell communication system. These weren't just random signals. They were carefully designed pieces of data that would confuse and mislead Krell communication networks. Imagine sending a message that looks completely normal, but slowly changes the meaning of every communication. A report about troop movements that subtly changes coordinates. A supply order that gradually reduces resources in critical areas. The Krell would not realize they were being attacked. They would think everything was normal. "Signal infection at 37%, reported Seo-yun, the team's communication specialist. Her eyes were bright with excitement. Another team member, Min Jae, worked on something even more interesting. He was creating digital ghosts, fake communication signatures that looked exactly like real Krell communications. These ghosts would appear and disappear, making the Krell question their own communication networks. Hours passed. The small human team worked silently, their technology moving like water through the Krell systems. No explosions, no traditional destruction, just pure, intelligent manipulation. "Mission complete," Ji-woo finally said. When they left, nothing looked different. The Krell communication relay station continued to operate. But something had changed. Deep inside its systems, small seeds of confusion had been planted. Back at their base, Yuna Kim reviewed the mission reports. This was not traditional warfare. This was something new, something the Krell had never seen before. "We're not fighting their war," she told Jae-won. "We're changing how war is fought." The Krell believed in direct conflict, overwhelming force, absolute control. They had never faced an enemy that understood that the most powerful weapon was not a gun or a bomb. The most powerful weapon was the ability to make your enemy doubt everything they knew. And humans were masters of doubt.